Um, so honestly, I'll share my experience that I had
Okay.
in the backyard today, and I'd love your kind of like feedback, and we can have a conversation around it. So I went in the backyard because I opened the back door. I'm like, and it's so nice outside. It's sunny. It's not that cold, but I still put my thin jacket on. And as I'm out there, I'm pruning my plants, tidying up, picking up dog poop. That was the first thing that I wanted to do, and of course, playing with the dog at the same time. And then I get to a point where I am watering the grass now, watering the plants, and I keep fighting with myself internally that I should be doing something else. Why am I here watering the grass when there's so much to do? I started cleaning the kitchen, right? I fed the kids, I fed myself, and I started cleaning the kitchen. And then all of a sudden, I ended up in the backyard. Living with ADD is not an easy thing, okay? So this is kind of like a perfect example. I'm doing one thing, and before that, I was writing things down and was watching a show and taking notes. What else was I doing? Cleaning the kitchen and eating my breakfast at the same time. And then I ended up in the backyard. And as I'm watering, I'm like, I should be doing something else. Why am I here wasting my time? And this is what I realized was creating the biggest anxiety in myself, is that not being present in the moment, taking myself out of it by not enjoying the process, but by not enjoying what I'm doing, by not being in that moment, but by thinking, what am I going to do later? How am I going to do it? Do I have enough time?
Right.
How much time is left? Looking at my step counter, looking at the time, and the head starts spinning, and I find myself in this tornado, right? And I know how to take myself out of it, right? But this is where I kind of want to hear what you have to say about that experience.
Okay, so just to recap, these are the kinds of things you're doing, like taking the dog for a walk, picking up dog poop, watering the garden. And then somewhere in between whatever led you to those moments and the anxiety of like needing to be somewhere else, which of course like makes sense that you would experience anxiety because the thoughts you're having are about the future, like you're trying to plan for the future. So yeah, I mean, I'm wondering what led you to each of those moments, and like if there was ever a thought before the thought I need to be somewhere else or doing somewhere else where you were in the moment, I guess.
Honestly, in the moment, I didn't realize what it was, right? In the moment, I didn't realize it. But then as I caught myself planning, going back to that cycle of planning, to-do lists, and all the next, I realized that there's this voice inside my head that says, what are you doing? Why are you wasting your time on that? Right? You can do that later. There's more important things to do right now. And that's the voice that is of other people that has been said to me here and there, growing up, and in my marriage as well, whatnot, right? Because there's always so much to do as a parent and as a partner. It's like, well, why are you doing that now? There's other things that are more important to do. And the same thing with building a business, right? There's more important things to do, Yana, than be out there and watering the grass. And then I said to myself, why? Why are those things more important when what I'm teaching people, what I'm helping people to understand is being in the moment? And how can I teach something? How can I expect that of somebody else if I'm not doing that myself? So why can't I enjoy the fresh air? Why can I enjoy watering the grass and watch the water hit the grass and like feel it grow and maybe exaggerate on it, you know what I mean? But find different ways to be in the moment.
Well, here's what's so amazing. You're recognizing the exact thoughts, the specific thoughts that are pulling you out of it and pulling you into the future. And you're recognizing where they're coming from, and you're challenging. So you're already in the process of being in the moment. And keep in mind, it takes practice. So even though you're recognizing what's pulling you out of it, and that could be frustrating as well. So like, I know exactly which thoughts are pulling me out of it. I know where they're coming from. They're not coming from me. Like, even if you give yourself permission to go to live moment by moment, and if you want to water the grass and enjoy it, you have already given yourself permission for it. So even just to recognize that that doesn't belong to you, those expectations, that they're like the external blocks that turn into the gremlins message of not good enough. I'm not good enough. This isn't enough. I need to be doing more and more and more. So the fact that you're already able to recognize and evaluate how those thoughts are serving you is the first step, and you're on your way there. And it just takes practice, the same way coaching the gremlin takes practice, and like having a negotiation and getting really clear on what your time means to you and how you want to value your time. This is your time. Like living life the way others would have you live it, that's living a life for them.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be fun. It would not be fun because they would get me to do all of their dirty work, and that's not what I want to do. Some people might enjoy it, but not for me. So I want to spend it the way I want to spend it.
Exactly. It's not why you're here. You're here for your own life.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're like, everybody has their own agendas, and if you're conforming to someone else's agenda, then you're living life according to someone else's plan.
Yeah.
So this is an amazing opportunity to get really clear on what valuing your time means to you, and how you can apply that and enforce it and internalize that this is your time, and you have all the permission in the world to fill your time with what brings you joy and be in the moment, and without feeling like you're not fulfilling other people's expectations or meeting some societal standards.
Yeah, my favorite quote or phrase that I say to myself to remind myself to be in the moment is, as I'm taking 3 deep breaths. Okay, sometimes I might need to take more than 3 deep breaths. To each their own, and whatever you need in the moment. That's why I wanted to say that as well. So I would take 3 deep breaths, and I remind myself that we are human beings and not human doings. Because if we were human doings, we would always be doing, and always be doing. And this time right now, with so many people being locked in their houses and not being even allowed to go for walks, because apparently my husband keeps telling me that a family can't even go for a walk because every person that is on the walk, including your children, can get a fine of $1,000 each. So, I mean, I haven't met anyone who has that. This is in Canada, so I'm in Canada. I don't know if it's true. I'm just kind of saying what was said to me. But when we are home and we are quarantined and we're not allowed to go outside, I can sometimes feel like I'm not doing enough, but then I realize that I'm not being enough, which means I'm not being in the moment.
Yeah.
I'm focusing too much on the doing part, and that doesn't help. I mean, that is one of my hardest gremlins messages that I have been working through. And I didn't even realize that that was my deeply rooted message, because ever since I was little, I was always like doing and doing and doing and doing and doing. When I was young, I was doing, I had an idea, I would go for it. The idea would be climb a tree, and I would climb a tree, nothing would stop me. Another idea would be like, oh, jump off this ledge. The kids are not listening, right? Jump off this ledge, go jump on the river here. And I would go in and do it. I would have an idea and I would follow through on that idea. And now, not so much. And over the years, I became less and less and less. And that's where that message of I'm not doing enough keeps repeating, right? And this is where today in the backyard was a perfect example for me, and a perfect opportunity. What a perfect opportunity to have that come up for me and work through it, and then bring that to everyone else that will be watching this, including you, Rachel, to work through it, to kind of like use that as an example.
You know, we could actually coach the gremlin. Like, we could actually work through it if you want, if you'd like.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome. That would be a perfect example for people watching what coaching is and how it would work.
Yeah. So,
and if tears come through, I mean, that means it's working.
I want to grab. I want to do this right and grab the actual manual with the tool in it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
I'll be right back.
Where's my water?
Are you kidding me?
Is that Ethan?
Yes, I have no more toilet paper.
It's in the drawer. Don't worry, we have enough toilet paper in this house. I know some people might be panicking and not having enough toilet paper.
Oh.
Yeah, there's lots of toilet paper there.
10,000 wolves.
Yeah, well, not 10,000 then.
50.
Maybe I left it in Maine.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I may have left. Oh.
Did you leave everything there?
No, there's no way I made, because it has it's the third module. It's got everything. All right, here's lobbying. Oh, here it is. Okay.
In a safe spot.
Like, how the hell have I been doing? Like, I did the I don't know if you've learned about this yet, but the pain gain action model.
No, that's mod 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's coming.
Yeah. Because I was like, wait, I just pulled that out. Like, it's got to be somewhere. All right. So coaching the gremlin.
I think I can sense what that exercise is, pain and gain. Because you're feeling pain means you're gaining something from it. What are you gaining from that pain?
Here, I'll show it to you. You'll be like ahead of the class.
I feel like I'm already ahead of the class with everything, because I go there and I'm like, I got all the answers, guys.
Yeah. I mean, like, once you know the 4 blocks and the energy levels, you pretty much got it down.
Yeah, and the law of being was huge help for me for that.
Yeah.
I mean, that alone was incredible. I'm still trying to convince my husband to go through the program as well. But it's a lot of work.
Like, it is, and it's like such a weird process to suggest to others and get a buy-in from them, because there's no way to explain the inner work. Like, people can see it, they can sense shifts in energy coming from you, and but there's no way to express what it would do for them, really, for them to feel it and get that buy-in. So it's just, this work is just so interesting, like, because you can see it, you can see what's keeping someone blocked, and it's like a little bit frustrating because I'm like, it's all right here, like, you can unblock yourself, it's all right here.
But it takes time. Like, for example, like this Gremlins message, I had been carrying it in the back of my mind for a really long time, thinking, like, not realizing that that was what's been keeping me truly stuck. And I would plan a lot, I would have ideas, I'd have these things, and it becomes, it's like, oh my God, that's a lot to do. And then what am I going to do now? This cat is like, pet me, rub me. So I end up not doing anything some days.
And you mentioned something important, just the cyclical nature of this kind of work, and that you didn't realize that, just like how strong the gremlin is, and the gremlin never stops. It's energy.
Mm-hmm.
And energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but it can be transformed. So usually the gremlin, it results in level 1 energy. I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
And then when we transmute the energy, it results in anywhere from 4 to 7. So that's alchemy. So that's just something important to keep in mind when coaching the gremlin, to recognize we're not disowning it, we're not extinguishing it, we're not getting rid of it, we're alchemizing it.
Yeah.
And that's a process we can always do. And the more we practice that process, the more efficient we become at recognizing and alchemizing, recognizing and transmuting.
Yeah.
So that's just something to keep in mind as we do this this coaching tool.
Mm-hmm.
And just before we get to it, I'm just going to show you the pain, gain, action model. So it's these 4 quadrants. The first quadrant, so we work in I think we go this way, 1, 2, or 1, 4, 2, 3. Mm-hmm. And so we address the pain or the costs remain in the current situation, and then what are the benefits of making the change. And we address those first because they're pretty straightforward, and there's not a lot of energy attached to either of those. Mm-hmm. And then we do the quadrant, how do you benefit from the current situation, because there's a lot of energy attached to that situation, the gain of the current situation. And then we move to what are the costs to make the change. So that's the pain associated with the future change, and there's a lot of energy attached to that as well. So
yeah, and I'm already like, my brain is already working through it all and trying to fix it for myself.
Exactly.
And then those messages usually that there's a reason why they go they keep us stuck.
Yeah.
Right? Before, and I mean, that's another message that I have, is I'm not smart enough. So now it's like, sometimes it's like I'm too smart and I don't even know where to even begin to start sharing all of my stuff, because it's like people might not understand.
Yeah.
And this is where that part can also keep me stuck with sharing, because then I would have to change my entire audience that I have on my social media, because the audience that I have now is the audience from the old me. And I don't know too many of them that are ready for the new me.
Can I point something out?
Yeah.
the thoughts that you're having are also based in the future. The like audience reaction, like how your audience is going to receive you.
Yeah.
Just thought
Yeah, I do think a lot in the future.
Yeah.
Right? I don't really dwell on the past. And that's why I wanted to bring that topic up today, because I find myself a lot in the future. What am I going to do next? Before I even started doing what I'm currently doing, before I'm halfway done, what am I going to do next? What's next? What's next? What's next? And I'm like, only one of me. Where are my little minions that are going to help me to do all of these things that I want to do, right? I want to get started on something, but I don't like completing it for the most part. And this is where it's like, I'm not doing enough, because the enough part would be, this is what I'm doing, finish it. That's enough. Take a break. Stop always wanting to be doing and learn to just be.
Something that I've noticed about you from the very first time we started talking is that your vision is grand. So, birthing such a grand vision will naturally make you feel like you're not doing enough when it looks like we're going in a linear path from A to B to C to D, and you can see Z so clearly. And just from someone who has known you now for a while and has stayed like intimately connected to you and knows your soul, I just want to say, like, before we, as a friend, before we get into coaching, I have seen your progress, and just kind of wish you could see yourself through my eyes objectively and just like see how much you've done and how much you've grown, and like where you are now. If I'm looking at this linear timeline from A to Z, it looks like you're halfway there. So I just wanted to pause and just celebrate the progress you have already made, because I understand why you want the minions doing the work, because your vision is
Yeah, you've heard it.
yeah, it's like covers all the bases. It's like, yeah, it's got like so many. That's why, okay, another thing to celebrate, that's why when you uncovered that clarity with multi-passionate entrepreneur, that's why for you that came through, because you are multi-passionate, and it can be hard to slow down it's like paralysis by analysis. Like, you see all the different paths, and therefore there are a lot of start and stops down each one. So I just wanted to offer that, because you deserve to bathe and bask in the glow of all that you've already done as you build toward the grand vision.
Yeah, I do, but I don't see it myself. You know what I mean? And that's where a lot of people, they don't see, like I said, I don't look in the past. I don't dwell in the past. So who I was, and you have seen my growth of who I was and who I am now. I don't look at it. I don't see it. And sometimes it is extremely beneficial to pause and just look back of who Yana was and who Yana is now. And I did that yesterday. I can't remember who, I think it was my husband I was talking to, or maybe even myself, because sometimes I just talk to myself. I'm not crazy. I just talk to myself, right? We all do. But I said that or it might have been on the call on Friday, that if people from my high school that I don't talk to anyone anymore, but if they, or even people that I worked with at the bank, if they saw me now, if they watched any of these videos that we have now, I don't think they would really recognize me, right? They would see me as like, who is this person and why wasn't she there back then, right? Because maybe she would have helped me more because I was always helping people. But it is very important to look back at our own journey and see our growth and feel our growth, really feel.
Feel it, yes. Yeah. And then you start realizing that it is a cyclical journey, and where you are in the cycle expands and expands each time.
Yeah.
Break through that code. It's like, so the coaching the gremlin, for example, I think of it as cracking a code. I think of everything we do when we're smashing blocks and grow, like every time we evolve deeper within ourselves and the universe, I consider we've just cracked another code or like reached a new level in the video game. And every time you crack a code, you expand to the next level. And but then they come back. Like then there are new challenges. Like it's not like in a video game you beat the first level and then you coast, and it's just like, what fun would that be?
Yeah.
So so coaching the gremlins, definitely one of those codes that have helped me every time I've reached it again and hear my gremlin talking shit. Now my gremlin and I are just like, I kind of like I have like a visual experience where I look at my gremlin and I'm like, are you for real? Like, we've been through this so many times. And the gremlin's like, oh, you're right. Like, I forgot. So we'll do, shall we get into it? You ready?
Let's go.
Okay. All right. Maybe, shall we get centered? Just take 3 deep breaths and say,
Yes, let's do that.
say,
I like to like stretch.
I love this. I love this stuff.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
All right. So first, we are going to identify the gremlin and name it, which I already know you've done. So just for everyone else, do you mind sharing your gremlin's name?
Yeah. My gremlin's name is Tiny, and actually, that's one of the things that I've been kind of avoiding doing or finding myself doing something else, but sharing the story that I have written about my gremlin. So my gremlin's name is Tiny, and that was actually my nickname growing up. My entire childhood up until even now, I'm still either, and then I don't like to use some of these words, but this is what I'm called. I'll refer to as a midget or as Tiny, and that's my gremlin's name, Tiny, because I've always been little. I'm 5'1". And especially when I'm standing beside my husband, I look even smaller because he's 6'5", right? So that's my gremlin's name, and I will be eventually sharing the story that I have written about her that I prepared for Mod 2 for school. I always like to be in certain areas overly prepared, and I was overly prepared. Yeah.
We were working on that for a while. Okay, so the gremlin is Tiny. So what do you think the purpose of Tiny is? And when and how do you think she was created?
I don't think I know. So I know that she was created from a very, very, very young age. And her purpose is to keep me safe, to protect me from everything and from everyone, and to make sure that I am happy and joyful. But she doesn't always have the right way to go about it. That's why it is the gremlin.
Mm. So what is her way of going about it? What's her message?
She has a lot of messages for me, a lot of them, and some of them are really loud and really strong. And in this point of my life, they are preventing my success, my business success, right? Because success is different areas of life, my business success and growth. And the two biggest ones is, like I said, not smart enough. That one kind of still plays because my vocabulary is not the same as, let's say, Tony Robbins or Dean Graziosi, right? Or even as Rachel Goldberg, as yours, right? My vocabulary is different from other people, and I know that it's okay because I'm not meant to be everyone's cup of tea. And I know that my people, my tribe will come to me because I might be easier to digest in some areas, right? Because somebody else's vocabulary might be a little too much for them, and my vocabulary might be just perfect. It's like the three little bears story, right? Trying the three different porridges and seeing which one is perfect. And the one that is really strong right now, that, and these messages I will continue to work through, right? But this one, like I said earlier, is I am not doing enough.
Okay.
I'm not doing enough for my business. I'm not doing enough for growing my social media. I'm not doing enough for putting together the trainings that I want. I'm not doing enough in the house. I'm not doing enough with the kids. I'm not doing enough with the pets. I'm not doing enough for myself, my health, my personal growth. I'm not doing enough literally for every area of my life.
So it sounds like the I'm not doing enough gremlin is really strong right now. Like it sounds like it's showing up in pretty much every area of your life.
Yeah.
All right. So Teeny saying I'm not doing enough and I'm not smart enough.
Mm-hmm.
And these are holding you back. And so everything has a purpose. And as you identified when you're the I apologize. Animals have just been like coming up to my window and like peeking in.
Animals.
So as you identified earlier, your gremlin's purpose is to keep you safe, to protect you. And there was a time when that kind of protection was necessary. And I mean, even going further back from childhood and just on a DNA level, we won't get into that right now. But that form of protection at one point was appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
However, it is no longer appropriate. So
Yeah.
it's a protection that is being generalized for areas of your life where it's actually holding you back instead of helping you.
Mm-hmm.
So because it's not helpful, it's a displaced energy. So whenever that shows up,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to incorporate this kind of evaluatory process. And so let's acknowledge that it's here today. Teeny is here. Tiny. Wait, Teeny?
Tiny.
Tiny, right.
Yeah.
Tiny's here today and saying, you're not doing enough. You're not smart enough. Mm-hmm. So why is she here today?
Because that way I get to do nothing. Right? So that way I get to just relax and not do anything. Yet I feel like I'm punished for not doing anything. right? So the guilt and shame is attached to it for listening to her voice and keeping me tiny, right? My size means nothing. I might be physically small, but I am not tiny. I am mighty, and I know that. And it's like a lion, right? Tiger, because I am a tiger. I'm not a baby tiger anymore. I'm a big tiger, and let me hear myself roar. Where she doesn't like the roaring. This cat like back and forth, back and forth.
You're talking about tigers. I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm right here.
He was in the backyard with me as well, so I had fun with him and splashing him with water every time he would try to walk on the grass. I don't like him disappearing because his fur won't keep him warm. You hear him, and he's annoying now, eh? His fur won't keep him warm at night because it's very fine, and he might end up freezing, and I don't want to lose this kitty cat.
No, he's Ramses, like
Yeah.
he's the king of the castle.
Yeah, he is. See, he comes over, takes over his favorite seat in the house. But that's exactly what it is. I know that. I know that because of that message, I get to do nothing.
So, how do you think the gremlin is trying to protect you?
Depending on the task. So, since we are talking about the gremlin, and I have been already sharing my finished project or almost finished project of the gremlin, because the project that I did for class was one thing, and then I went and I sanded and stained the board, the wooden board that my husband put together for me, and I put the gremlin on there, I glued it, it's done, and it's been done for almost 2 weeks now, and I have been avoiding sharing it because it's like, it's like standing naked in front of the whole public.
Yeah.
Right? Because the other side of it is it's like we get bonded and we connect with people through our vulnerabilities, not through our strengths, right? So people will get to see the vulnerable side of me, and they will get to understand me, and they will get to connect with me, and maybe even feel me and really, really understand me with certain of these messages. Because I don't know if you got to see. I don't think very many people even got to see the gremlin, but what I did is I have her picture cut out, and it opens up, right? The picture opens up, and underneath her, there's a white spot, and I painted it so it glows in the dark. You know, because I'm just, I gotta do things differently. That even her messages glow in the dark. That was the thinking that I had. But I wrote down all of her messages on there that she had for me at that point that I was able to come up with. And this was before this one came to be uncovered, even though I did add it in the end, but it's in the smaller part.
The
So,
I'm not doing enough one.
huh?
Just to clarify, the I'm not doing enough message.
Yeah, that one I added. It was the very last one that I added, and I wrote it down and I wrote it down in there. It was like the night before we were going to Mod 2, but she's keeping me safe in the way that nobody gets to know and feel me and connect with me on an energetic level through this. Then
Wow, that's insightful. So
Mhm.
she's keeping you safe from intimacy.
yeah, and also she is in the sense of not doing anything, because there are going to be people that will connect with me, and they will want to connect with me, right? They will want to reach out and have a conversation with me, and I want that. And the other side of this is I don't, because then that means I have to do something. That I can't just sit there and do nothing. right? So
Yep. Yep.
you can see how deep this one message is and how many different webs this goes. And I mean, there's more to it,
Yep.
but that is
Always. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Um, just because we're both coaches, this isn't normally how this exercise would be run, but just for the sake of like um of just uh I don't want to say commiserating because I just don't like the way that sounds, but relating.
Mhm.
Um relating to how deep it goes.
This is informational, right? Podcast. So this is where this coaching is not exactly how coaching is because we as coaches don't share ourselves
Yeah.
experiences, but I think it is important to hear your connection to all of this and how that goes for you.
Yeah. And so as you were as you mentioned, like I just love how simply you put it. Then you're gonna have to do something. That was why my grandma was protecting me and still tries to protect me. And one aspect of that came up once when I was on the phone with one of my peer coaches when I was going through the module. What came up was that it was when I felt called to start my Empath Warrior Training Facebook group, and you know when you're birthing an idea and you're like, why am I doing this? Like, what is happening? You know, like this is like creating something. And I remember experiencing so much resistance, and so my peer coach walked me through this exercise, and what came up when I was evaluating how the gremlin was trying to protect me, I started crying and I was like, it just feels like such a big responsibility.
Yeah. Even with me posting the gremlin story, my story, that feels like a huge responsibility.
Yeah, it is a whole new kind of leadership because it's leading from the soul, and as you mentioned, vulnerability, like it's leading through exposing the depths of our souls. And
Like
because
bare naked, right?
was that?
It's like standing bare naked, fully exposed.
Yeah. And we feel called to do that because we understand that's how we heal ourselves and each other and give others permission to do this kind of work.
Yeah.
So it's just such a new kind of leadership in a society where leadership used to be based on who was the most ruthless and the most confident and most I was going to say arrogant, but just you know, it's completely new to lead from a place of vulnerability because there's no script for it. It's just however your soul feels ready to express, and it is so stepping out into that leadership role is a huge responsibility, and you are gonna have to do stuff.
Yeah. Right. Um, that I mean, that's it. Like because I won't get to sit down and do nothing, and even then, I rarely sit down and do nothing. My definition of doing nothing is watching one of Netflix shows
Mhm.
I am taking notes on. Okay, because I'm that weird. I'm taking notes on it. Like the one that I started watching was Cooking with Cannabis, and it's a really interesting show. I didn't know there was THC powder that easily mixes into things. So, I mean, I'm taking notes on it, and I watched 2 episodes. I'm like, no, this is really interesting. I'm learning a lot. So let's go back to the first episode, start taking notes on it as I'm washing dishes and cleaning the kitchen. So that's me doing nothing. And that's why I can take an hour or up to 2 hours to clean the kitchen and do nothing.
Well, that doesn't see, and this is where we can change our definitions of this. This comes up a lot on our calls and on the Coven calls, and changing our definition of what productivity means. To me, that sounds extremely productive because you are tapped in to your frequency where you're receiving information so much so that you're taking notes and learning. You're compelled by that information. Cooking with cannabis, you're compelled by it. And as IPEC coaches and energy leadership coaches, we know that the highest form of consciousness is absolute passion. So if you're being compelled by something, I consider that productive because it's giving yourself permission to expand to the frequency of passion. You are actually, it doesn't look, and here's the thing about level 7 absolute passion, highest level of frequency, and the result of it is creation. It doesn't necessarily show up as a creation the way we think that creation shows up, like in the form of a song or artwork. Like when artists create, it's obvious. When musicians create, it's obvious. When a mystical creatrix witch is creating, it's not so obvious. It's weaving an invisible web that will one day reveal itself, and your web's been weaving. So what I was picturing as you were saying that you were taking notes while doing dishes, I was picturing you taking notes and seeing you weaving your web. So to me personally, web weaving is like as productive as it gets right now for people like you, people with the vision. Like you have you have a really vivid gift of clairvoyance, and so if you're weaving your vision, and that, to me, that's as productive as someone can be in the universe right now, because we need as many weavers and dreamers weaving our webs. So that's this is just another opportunity to reevaluate the activity as a patriarchal society where the no judgment on the patriarchy. I'm not judging it's good or bad. I'm just saying that the patterns in the patriarchal society are, because it is more, it's a masculine energy. Masculine energy is the energy of go, 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 do, push, push, push. And we are in the process, and have been in the process, of changing management from patriarchy to matriarchy. Matriarchal energy, feminine energy, is more allow, process, surrender to spirit, rest, nurture. It's fertile. So one of my favorite lessons from the Hay House Writers Workshop was with Marianne Williamson, and she said, when you're pregnant with an idea, the labor will occur. It's nature will run its course. And I think that we forget, when it comes to ideas and vision, that the germination process can take however long it takes. It's mysterious. So there's no way to predict or, and especially when it's as beautiful and grand, all inclusive as yours, is going to birth itself, or how it's going to birth itself. So if you're allowing yourself to expand to the point at which you're so compelled that you're taking notes, that's productivity to me.
You see, in those times, I feel like I'm aware of that concept, and I remind myself this is like I don't like to label it good or bad, but if we're going to, because this is the language that so many people understand, this is good, right? What I'm doing is good, that I am being productive, but it still feels like it's not enough, right? That I should be taking notes and watching something else, not the fun stuff, but something else that's educational, rewatching the webinars, right? Watching one of the training courses that I got from any other of the other programs that I have. So in that time, again, I'm like, no, this is enough. There's a reason why I'm watching. There's a reason why I feel compelled to take notes. I don't know where it's going to take me. I don't know. I don't understand. And it's not my job to understand. It's my job to allow it to go through me, to get attached wherever it feels like being attached in my body, and then birth it. It kind of reminded me of remember on Friday I was talking about some weird movements that I felt like in my stomach, that it's almost like I had a baby in my stomach, like moving and moving around, and then I was like, oh my God, it happened. This is the second time that it happened to me, right? And I'm not pregnant, right? Did the test, there's nothing there. So I'm not pregnant, it's not the baby. And this is the second time that it happened to me. And then when I was telling my husband about it and how we had the conversation and how it's, and they're going to be an idea that's going to be birthed, he, of course, he doesn't understand this kind of stuff. He's like, oh my God, like, please, like, don't tell anyone. This is like weird. How, like, no, he goes, why don't you go and do a test, because maybe you're just pregnant, right? Not pregnant with an idea, but pregnant with the baby. Because I spend a lot of time in this, but he goes to work, right? And his personal development and personal growth is different from mine, right? Because we do have different interests, and it is important to have different interests as well as the same. Yeah, so I thought I would mention how.
Yeah, it also sounds like you're able to remove his story from your story and like not let it impact you, like him, like like, okay, that's weird, don't tell anyone this, like, because that could also grow into a gremlin.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why it's important, and that's where these new messages that might come through to me from other people,
Right.
those voices, I don't allow them in. Right. I work through it as it comes, right? And I realize that it's not mine. I don't need it. It's not going to benefit me, and I really don't want to be adding it to my gremlins board afterwards. Right? Because I want to add all the messages that the gremlin has for me, and it's like, well, like I'll give you another kind of example. So I have this app called FitnessPal where it helps you to monitor the calories that I eat. It helps me to monitor the calories that I eat. So, and if I'm looking at something, and let's say grilled cheese that the kids didn't finish eating, and I want to take a bite of it, and then I think, well, is it worth pulling out my phone, putting those calories in to make sure that I'm not lying to my phone, to my app, and I'm not lying to myself? No, it's not worth it. So then I'm not gonna eat it. The same thing with these gremlin messages that keep coming to us on a daily basis from other people. Maybe not on a daily basis, maybe monthly basis, maybe bi-weekly or annually, however these new messages come through to us. Is it worth it to spend the time to add that message to my program, or do I not add it? Do I not eat that grilled cheese?
I like how you equate it to a program, because our brains are hard drives. So do we want to clear out that hard drive of the you suck stories and switch it up with something a little bit more fueling and healing and growth oriented and encouraging?
Yeah.
Let's
Changing those tabs.
Yeah. So let's do that. Let's get back to the exercise, the coaching the gremlin, and so just to recap, the gremlin is telling you you're not doing enough, and then the other one that you mentioned is you're not smart enough, and the gremlin's tiny, and we acknowledge that she's here to protect you, and showed up at a young age, and we acknowledge that that kind of protection is no longer needed. So and we talked about how she's trying to protect you today, like why she's showing up today is to protect you from connecting with people and doing more.
Yeah, and actually
Don't do enough. Protecting doing more.
and doing the work to grow myself, to grow my business. But myself is not that difficult. Unless it's deep work, then it's like, I don't feel like crying today.
Yeah, and like, hey, and you can cry tomorrow if like when you know what the process is, you can work it into your flow however suits you. So since that kind of protection is no longer appropriate, how would you feel about giving Tiny a new job?
Sure. She's gonna go to work for me.
Yeah, I mean, how else because as we mentioned, that's energy, and that's a lot of energy. It's got a lot of potential. So how else would you like to use that energy?
To actually do something productive, and most importantly, honestly, to do what she's telling me not to do.
Okay, that's usually yeah.
To rebel out of myself, and it's like, oh, you told me not to do this? Okay, I'm gonna go and do it behind your back.
All right. So sounds like you have a new job for her. So I'm choosing which path I want to bring you down. So what is her new job going to be?
Her new job is going to be to remind me of what is actually important to do. Because if she tells me not to do it, then I can use that as a reminder that that is just resistance coming up, and that's exactly what I should be doing.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, so just to internalize and reaffirm, with your permission, how would you like to do a little centering exercise?
Sure.
And okay. All right, so first, so what we're going to do is we're going to, just for the sake of explaining, we're going to imagine a conversation with the gremlin, just to integrate that this is a voice in our heads. Like, as we were saying earlier, we talk to ourselves, and it's not crazy, it's totally normal. Like, let's be honest, everybody talks to ourselves, and whether it's out loud or internally. So what we're doing is we're acknowledging that the gremlin is a voice in our head that comes up, and once we develop an interaction with it, it becomes easier and easier over time, and with practice, to efficiently alchemize the energy from level 1 to level 5, 6, 7, wherever. So, all right, so let's get centered. Let's take 3 deep breaths. Let's actually incorporate Kelsey's leadership and put the left hand on the heart, right hand on the belly, and we're gonna breathe in, saying I am, and out, saying here now. So in, I am, here now. One more time. I am, here now. One more. I am here now. Okay, so go ahead and keep your eyes closed. And I'm going to talk this whole time and have you repeat silently what I say to you. So I'm going to say some things for you to say to your gremlin. So bring Tiny to mind and say silently to Tiny, I thank you, honor you, and embrace you. And you are not needed to hold me back at this time. I can handle it from here. And then you're going to say, since I no longer need you to protect me, since I no longer need you to protect me from doing things, from more responsibility, I would like you to instead use your energy to help me do those very things. And then imagine Tiny saying back to you, I'd love to. I'm only here to help. Okay, and now I'm going to count to 5, and when I get to 5, you can open your eyes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, great job.
Oh, thank you. I honestly would say I like to share my experiences. And when you said imagine Tiny and like see her, I saw my Gremlin project. And that's when I felt emotional because seeing her as part of me and yet outside of me and in front of me, it's like looking at yourself. That's where I'm like, I'm not even sure why I felt emotional, but just seeing her as me. And even though she is a natural gremlin as the picture, and so to me, it's important. It was important to actually have a face on my gremlin, so I can see her, and I can envision her, and I can kind of separate myself from her in a way. But that to me felt emotional because it's like I see you, and to me, when I say I see you, I don't know if you've seen the movie Avatar. When they say I see you, it feels like it's not that they see you, it's they actually see you and feel you and hear you and understand you, and they love you on all of these deep levels. So when I say I see you, to me that's what it means. So when I saw her, it's like I see you and she sees me because that's all she has for me, right? Because that's what the gremlin is. And that's where we use that as punishment. We use those messages as punishment, but they're not meant to be. They're meant to be to keep us safe, to keep us from getting hurt. For me, and anyone that is trying to grow their online business, any entrepreneur, this might be a really, really big one because it's scary and it's painful to put ourselves out there, to be seen, to be heard, and have people sometimes come at us and try to put us down. and can feel bad, and it affects us on many different levels. And it doesn't happen necessarily in the moment, but we carry it with ourselves, right? And this is why this is such a deep and important topic, especially for entrepreneurs, because that's what keeps us stuck. That's what keeps us, that's what keeps me stuck. That's what keeps me safe and not doing anything and hoping and waiting for the changes to take place when they're not going to happen on their own. Somebody needs to do something, right? It's like that law of attraction. You can't just sit there and attract these things to yourself, especially like I want this big business. I have, as you know, I have this huge vision. But all of these things are not going to happen on their own. I need to do things to get to that point. And I continue to do things to get to the next point, to the next, to the next, because we as human beings, we're never really content with who we are and what we have, and that's where these goals and dreams come into place. We get there, we have it, we become that person, and then new things come. I want more, I want more, I want more, I want more. And learning to be okay with all of these things and learning to be happy and grateful that there's always more that we want for ourselves, that there's always growth, and going after them is one of the most important aspects of the human beings. Yes, be in the moment, but still know when it's time to be and when it's time to do, and find a healthy balance between the two. Because if we're constantly being and we're not doing anything for our goals, for our dreams, for our future, then that's where the disconnect can come into place.
Yep. And that's why it's important to remember that every energy level serves a purpose, because if we were just at level 7 all day, every day, we wouldn't do any, I mean, we wouldn't be able to really tap into the doing, like what needs to get done to build that vision. Because in that space, the vision's already built. So yeah, so as you were talking, I was just thinking like, oh yeah, level 5, and you love level 5 energy. So, and because at level 5, so something that distinguishes level 5 from level 4. So level 4 is the energy of concern for others, and the thought is concern for others. So the core feeling is compassion. The result of compassion is being in service. And at level 5, the difference is that at level 5, so people at level 4 are really good at helping and fixing and doing for others. At level 5, you're still good at that. You still have access to that energy, but you'd rather others help themselves so that you can instead focus on production. And therefore the organization, whether it's family or work, is more regenerative. So as you were talking, I was just thinking, yeah, that's why you gotta come back down. Like actually, like to birth something, you do have to come back, contract enough to create. And then something else you were saying, I forget exactly what, but it just brought to mind just the intensity of the gremlin, and depending on the intensity of it, it could take a lot of work and a lot of practice to transmute it effectively, and to the point where you can birth something from the soul. Because I find that when you're birthing something from the soul or expressing from the soul, that's when the gremlin has the most intense hold. And so I thought I'd share a couple of voices that my gremlin has, like what it sounds like, and that's come up for me. So I wrote, this was in February, this came up for me, and I heard it come through my brain, and I was like, I'm still dealing with this. So I wrote it down, and so my biggest gremlin my whole life is your voice doesn't matter. Like, shut up. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. Be silent, disappear, be invisible. Those kinds of, it's super intense.
That's
And
one of mine too.
yeah,
Because that's why even as a child, I would always speak really, really fast. Because otherwise I would not be heard.
yeah. It took me a long time. Like I got away with being mute essentially because my mom would tell people, oh, she's just shy. So I was like, oh, she's just shy. Like, that's my story. That's my jam. That's how I'll navigate this planet. And so back in February, it came up. I heard an ex say to me, like, internal dialogue, my ex's voice saying, I don't trust you to talk in front of people because I never know what's going to come out of your mouth. So I is making these types of videos and going live on Facebook group, and I'm like, all right, why am I not doing it? And the first thing that came through was that and so I checked in with my gremlin, and I was like, okay, gremlin, what thought when you hear that ex-boyfriend who doesn't know you, projecting, what's the thought that comes up? And my gremlin let me know that that she internalizes it as, I'm an embarrassment. And I was like, all right, totally get it. Of course you would think I'm an embarrassment if someone says, I don't trust you to talk in front of people. And so I was like, what feeling does that bring up? And my gremlin was like, shame. And I was like, all right, so what's your message? Don't open your mouth. And then the core message from, so I've molded my gremlin alchemization process just based on identifying the intensity and understanding why it feels like I'm going to be murdered essentially if I speak my truth. And another one that came up is my brother's voice, and he once called my vision. And you understand the vision because we perceive the harmonics, and we want to get back there to that place of peace and love and harmony. So the projection that came through my brother's voice, he said, that's idealistic unicorn fantasyland babble. That kind of talk is dangerous. Imagine if you were on TV saying that, people would be scared. So my gremlin's internalization is, it's not safe to express my beliefs. My voice causes harm. And then the feelings, because him calling my expression dangerous just kept like repeating in my head, like, I'm dangerous? I'm not dangerous. Am I dangerous? And so the feelings that I brought up were shame, self-doubt, and again, the core message of your voice doesn't matter. So when I recognize that those come up and pay attention to how it feels in my body and the helplessness that comes up, I try to sit with it and just go deep, like, what's going on here? Why would I let these two people who are on their own journeys, they have their own perceptions of the world, they have no idea what my level of consciousness feels like and what it feels like to live inside my head. Mm-hmm. So why am I letting it be that intense of a restraint on my voice? Like, why am I letting it strangle me? And so I just wanted to mention that because the intensity of it, and both of those obviously, well, I don't know if it's obvious, but they both go back to the child, like early childhood core wounds of being silenced. And so the more that we become clear on it and get to the root of the feelings, like once you can identify the feelings, like, oh yep, shame, self-doubt, which result in level 1 energy, we can effectively and more efficiently work to have that conversation with the gremlin. You know, what's your new message? And the more that you develop a relationship with the gremlin, the more the dialogue can quicken. And I'm at the point now where I'm like, you're really gonna say shit like that to me? And like, remember all the times we talked about that you're here to encourage me and tell me that I got this and tell me that I'm safe, and like sometimes my gremlin will remind me like nobody knows what they're doing. And because that's the new job I've given her. Like, she's here to remind me now that the status quo doesn't know shit.
Yeah.
And that's part of my alchemization process is my gremlin's new job, in addition to encouraging me, is to remind, actually, you know what, so okay, just as there are voices for the gremlin's old message, I have voices for the gremlin's new message. And one of the messages is from Rick and Morty. I don't know if you watch Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an episode where they're living in a simulation, and they're trying to break the simulation to crash the system. And in order to crash the system, their idea is they're going to perform a hip-hop song and get all of the simulated people to short circuit. So they're about to go on stage, and Morty's like, oh, I don't know, Rick, being all nervous. And Rick is like,
all the time. I don't know, Rick. I don't know. No, that's like the gremlin.
Morty. So Morty's like, I don't know, Rick. And Rick was like, don't worry about it, Morty. You're going to be fine. It's just a bunch of ones and zeros out there. So so sometimes my gremlin sounds like Morty being like, oh, I don't know. And then the new message will sound like Rick being like, it's just a bunch of ones and zeros out there. You're going to be fine. And then I'm like, oh yeah, like fuck the system, fuck the status quo. I'm going to be fine. They don't got shit on me.
Yeah. That's a much better message than keep your mouth quiet because you're gonna spook the chickens. Have you ever spooked the chickens and you get to see them run everywhere and fly everywhere and try to escape? I mean, it's something that's worth watching, and I did that when I was little back in Russia. My dad's mom, grandma's house, spooking the chickens. I would like go out there and then they would just go everywhere and go nuts and try to fly out, and they can't really fly because they cut their wings a little bit so they can't fly all the way and can escape and run away and run free. But that's kind of like what it made me think. Be quiet because you're gonna spook the chickens. And don't say what you want to say.
Honestly, that's another great image. Instead of perceiving the Matrix as people whose opinions we care about, because we do care about the people in our worlds. We want them to be proud of us. We want them to acknowledge us as human, autonomous beings with our own agendas. That difficult. Relationships are difficult, families are difficult, and so sometimes people have nothing to do with us, but they get lodged in our brains. So just thinking about it, detaching emotionally and thinking about it as just matrix programming is helpful. And I think that thinking of it as spooking the chickens is also a helpful image. Like, so I'm gonna say something, and the external world's gonna experience an adjustment period.
Yeah, they're gonna try to fly out over the fence.
And that helps to detach. It lightens the load, because it's just, if that's all it is, if it's just spooking the chickens.
I love humor. You probably noticed by now. My analogies, my little rearranging of thoughts, usually the ones that work are with humor, right? And that's where I like to turn everything into humor, and let's laugh about it, like looking at life, because things happen to us and things will always happen in our lives, right? That's what life is about. Each and every one of those things is an experience. And if you find yourself saying that one day we will laugh about this, right? One day it's going to be funny. We're going to look back and we're going to laugh at this. Why wait? It's like that same syndrome. I'll be happy when. Why wait to laugh about the situation later when we can stop and find a way we can laugh about it now? How are we going to laugh about it in the future? That's how. Oh, awesome. I'm going to laugh about it now in the same way. So laugh about it now. And guess what happens? The energy shifts. It's all about shifting energy. And something usually like that we say that we're going to laugh about it later, it might be embarrassing and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Or sometimes might be a little sad, and it might be difficult to even kind of picture ourselves laughing about it this early on. Later, we're talking about years later, right? When we're old, we'll laugh about it then. But how are we going to laugh about it then? Try to apply it in the now. Laugh about it now. Laugh about it now again and again and again until that energy shifts.
And you know what? Time is an illusion. So your future self is already laughing about it. So tap into your future self.
And that's why I say, figure out how that future self is going to laugh. Then.
Feel it. Try it on. Try on your future self. That's one of my favorite tools in life, is trying on my future self and having empathy for that chick. Like, I think about the 80-year-old future self and her looking back at a global pandemic being like, wow, I'm really glad I decided to go full on witch status and gather my coven and make magic and create the new world, and like what we're doing now. So that's one of my favorite tools, is just, I think of me at 70, at 80. And when it's short-term goals, such as doing my plank, I think about how I feel when I skip too many days of not doing my plank and my back starts to hurt because of a former back injury, and I'll check in with myself and like, do you really want to experience that? And I'll be like, well, no. And then I'm like, well, then get on the yoga mat, bitch, and do your plank.
That's a lovely talk. That's some lovely talk. Get on the yoga mat, bitch, and do some.
Sometimes the grandma has all sorts of voices. Sometimes it's so nurturing and loving, and it's like, it's okay, it's gonna be okay, you can do this. And sometimes it's like, are you fucking with me? Because we both know that you need to get your shit together. You got work to do, homie. And just whatever voices are appropriate for whatever obstacle.
Yeah. Here's another thing I just thought of, that sometimes these gremlin messages come up and we resist doing anything about it because I know on the other side of it, I'm going to feel good. I'm going to feel better. But that means also I might be doing something, and at the same time, back a little while ago, backtrack a couple of years ago, if that thought came up where I'm going to feel better, I would definitely not be doing it because I did not feel worthy of feeling better. that I didn't deserve to feel better, that I needed, that I have not gone through enough suffering and enough pain to
Oh,
feel better.
oh God, I can. Oh, yeah.
I wanted to mention it because some people, I can pretty much guarantee you, are facing that now or faced before. And I had to work through reframing those messages. I do deserve it. It is time. Why would I wait to feel better then when I can do it now? I don't have to spend my entire day and forcing myself to feel better. Just do this little thing, Yana, for 5 minutes. We can do anything for 5 minutes. Sitting on a toilet, dropping a deuce or whatever you want to call it, adding some humor in there, right? Listen to this motivational speech that's gonna make you cry. It's gonna make you cry so hard, but you're gonna feel release because that's what tears are. They will release. But you'll be distracted by your poop. So it's okay.
What I just want to touch on that feeling of not feeling worthy to feel better. For me, that comes up anytime. Like, one of the thoughts that prevents me from feeling worthy to feel better, and then I'll tell you how I work through it, is usually centered around hurt I've caused other people. And it's, you hurt this person at this point in time, and thinking that only that person's forgiveness, having a conversation and explaining myself and having that person's forgiveness would relieve me of that. How dare you be happy? How dare you be enjoying your life when you cause pain to that person? And one way I work through that, so that's probably my biggest trap into the I'm not worthy of being happy. And like when those thoughts come up, it's like cutting me off at my knees and then just like down for the count. And to work through that, I remember so that's emotional. That's in the right brain, highly emotional, a lot of emotional attachment and energy there. So to move through that, I've learned to shift more into my left brain, which is analytic. It evaluates, it's detached, and then I can reason with myself. And that's why the 7 levels of energy were such a gift to me, because they help me bridge the gap between spiritual health, mental health, emotional health, and science. So I think, okay, so in my left brain, I'm thinking, okay, I understand this is painful and there's a lot of emotion attached, but realistically, on an energetic level, what's happening is you're contracting to level 1. The world needs you to be at level 6, level 7. At level 6, you have access to all your wisdom, and you know that the only way that we're all going to get humanity out of here is for you to continue practicing accessing your wisdom. To access it, you need to experience joy. And so being able to have that conversation between my left brain and my right brain takes a lot of practice. But I have gotten to a point where, and sometimes my right brain will be like, no, I need to feel guilty for a little while. I need to feel shame over what I have done. Mm-hmm. And the two halves are like, all right, negotiation. You feel guilty for a day, cry if you need to. You're a cyclical creature and you're a woman. You know, we get it. All the board meeting going on in my head, they all get it. And so if that's the case, if I need to cycle it out, if I need to cry and I need to be like, I'm such a piece of shit, then I do that for a day. And then the next day I'm like, okay, I'm back.
Yeah, I do the same thing now too, because it still comes up, right? It still comes up. And when the guilt takes over, being an empath, that's one of the hardest things to work through. Guilt and shame, those two for me are so deep. And this is one of the reasons why I keep finding myself escaping social media and not being on there, because me feeling good can cause other people to feel bad about themselves, to feel shame in themselves, to feel guilt in themselves. And at the same time, I also know that maybe they need to feel that in order for them to experience and feel level one, and then perhaps say, fuck that bitch. I don't I don't want to say I don't like her because I want everyone to like me, but if that's what they need in that moment in time to shift to level two and take action and do something, then as much as, and this is where the battle happens, I don't want to create those feelings in other people, but if that's what needs to be done in order for them to do something, then yeah. But because they're not at the same level of awareness as I am and as you are, they will find someone else to blame. And Yana was the one that made me angry. Yana did this. And then eventually they would get to that place where they might look back and say, holy shit, Yana was awesome. She was the one that burst my bubble. It made me feel like total shit. And it got me to do something. So maybe Yana wasn't so bad. Maybe Yana was the best thing that ever happened to my life for however little that interaction was, right? So this is like, you get to hear the message change that I'm going through. And instead of looking at it as bad, look at it as good. Instead of looking at it from a level 1, level 2, or level 3, look at it from level 5. There's an opportunity in there.
And acknowledging, like, I'm glad that you acknowledge that they are the messages you are creating, because these conversations that you're having from the perspective of other people are completely imagined. It's 100% fiction. You have no way of knowing that anyone out there is thinking any of those things.
Well, because I thought of those things, and again, I elaborate on that because, well, I thought of someone perhaps this way, then somebody else must have thought of me that way, and maybe they thought of me this way and this way and this way and this way, and I'm building my own pyramid.
Then you imagine it, and all that matters, like, it's totally like total human nature to, especially when you're an empath, because you feel so deeply into every situation. You want to like map everything out based on how everybody's going to feel, and you want everyone to feel good. And because you have that deep insight, you can understand how everybody might feel. And so those kinds of internal like imaginary stories that we create are so natural. But the thing is, they are completely fiction, and none of that is actually happening in real time, in the now, that you're even aware of, or that you even need to focus on. So all that matters is, how is it making you feel? So it's looking at those thoughts of, this person might see this on social media and think, fuck that, fuck Yana, and like, that is not happening in the now that you're aware of. So all that matters is, how are those stories making you feel? Mm-hmm. And so being able to recognize that, first of all, their journey, like, one thing you recognize is their journey, not your journey. Anybody who has, again, it's just a bunch of ones and zeros out there. So however those ones and zeros are acclimating to the output that you're expressing, that's their journey. Those ones and zeros can have their reactions. And so that's just one way, is remembering, detach from that journey, not your journey, their journey. And also creating a message that might be more fueling, like, I'm going to put this out there, and my soul sister Rachel is going to see me experiencing joy, and then she's going to be so happy, because all she wants is all of her homies to be experiencing joy. And then I'm going to feel joy that you're experiencing joy. And when I feel joy, then the people, my tribe, feel joy, and it's a proliferation of joy for the tribe. So that could be a switch from like one person who might be like, how dare she be happy. They're
Yeah.
tribe that's like, go Yana, you know.
You know, that made me think like movies and TV shows. Do you prefer movies or like seasons shows?
I don't know. It depends. It depends what mood I'm in.
Right? So think of it that way. Our life is essentially a movie that can be put into episodes because shows are essentially one long ass movie that they have broken down in bite-sized pieces, right? So our life is a movie. How do we want that movie to play out? From the beginning, we might not really have a choice because we're just getting into the story, just getting kind of like acquainted, what's going on, who am I, and that gets to be adjusted throughout the movie. If you pay attention to the characters in the movie, they change a little bit. We can get to see their growth. So our life, we are characters of our own movie. We get to choose how that character thinks and what they do and how they're going to be acting in that movie. We get to choose all of that. Some of it might be unconscious.
The screenwriters, the camera crew, the stage, we are all of it.
Yeah, yeah. So how would we like to have that movie play? What kind of a movie is it going to be, right? Because there's different types of movies. What kind of movie is it going to be? Is it going to be a happy movie? Is it going to be a sad movie? Is it going to be a thriller? Is it going to be a scary movie? Right? And the scary movie right away, I think of people that love Paranormal Activity. Right? I mean, that's in a way a scary movie to so many people, but to them, they love it. They love it. They will go into haunted houses and talk to spirits, and other people will be like, "That's a haunted house," and run the other way. Right? Some people like live action movies, always on the go, always surfing the waves, climbing the mountains, exploring the wild. So decide, what kind of movie are you in? What kind of movie are you writing? Who is writing that movie with you? And then rearrange everything else kind of around it.
Yeah, essentially take the perception of the observer and then decide how to participate.
Yeah. And that's what it is, right? If you need to rewrite the screenplay, I think that's what it's called. If you need to rewrite the screenplay, rewrite it. Rewrite it, right? You always have pages.
It's okay to start over too in any area that the script's not working. It's okay to trash a script and create a whole new script.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. I did that when I left a job I'd been at for 7 years. I was like, this script sucks, and started brand new.
Put it
now dopest script.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get to write a new page anytime you choose to, whether it's on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, you write. And if it does not fit, if you don't like it, if you're rereading it and you don't like it, you want to change it, burn it. Go outside, make sure it's safe, put it in the fire pit, and set it on fire.
And right? It's not to say that there's not value in the old scripts. Like, it gets you here, gets us to where we are on the journeys. We wouldn't know what we wanted. Often, we don't know what we want until we first experience what we don't want.
Yeah. Well, some people like to burn them, right? Well, others, they like to keep it and hold on to it because one day they might want to read over it and see where they were back in the day, and kind of like, right, and feel and experience their journey. And because those pages that we write are essentially a timestamp in that moment, in that time, what we were going through and what was going through our minds. I was I was cleaning up. This was over a year ago now. I was cleaning up in the basement, going through all this stuff, right? And I found a few. I was going through a really, really difficult time for a few years. Honestly, it's been since 2008, right? November 2008 when we lost the twins. That's when it really, really, really got dark for me. So I came across a couple of letters that I had written to myself, and some of them were to people that were close to me because for me, it has been very difficult to express myself when I am in front of that person, to that person, because I would experience being blocked and not being able to express myself properly. And sometimes I need to think about it and process it, and then I would put it in writing and say everything I want to say. And I kept some of those letters. And just reading them and going over them, it brought me into that moment. And I was not the same person when I was brought back into that moment. So I got to experience it differently. And it helped me to kind of like open up my eyes and like say, holy shit snacks. That's so different to how you would be doing things now, because now I'm able to have that conversation and actually make eye contact with that person I'm having a conversation with. And it was not an easy journey. I realized that eye contact, and still sometimes it is extremely difficult for me, and it sounds weird even saying it out loud to myself, like eye contact, you scared of eye contact? Yeah, I was petrified of eye contact because they could see my soul, they could feel my soul, and I could feel theirs. And if I say something that might not necessarily be what they want to hear, I could feel the pain through their eyes, and hence I would avoid the eye contact so I don't have to feel it. So yeah, that's where like that story, it's like, that's why it's important sometimes to keep those pages, that we can look back at them and I guess reminisce over who we.
Like again, it's like seeing where you, if this is your spiral, it's like seeing where you are here from the perspective of where you are here. And it's like the same lesson from a more expanded place of consciousness and new, it's growth and it's beautiful, and it gives everything meaning. Like those difficult times, growing from them is how we can perceive the value in all the journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
so
yeah, I'm the time, right? Because we wanted to keep it to an hour, and
yeah.
I also wanted to mention before we go, because this will be, I guess, a really good ending part as we ended here, because when we are going through these growing times, it is difficult. It's not impossible, but it is difficult to do it on our own. And that's where having an accountability partner is one of the best things that any one of us can have. And I honestly, going through the coaching, having my own coach, and also having my accountability partners, because I tried to do it for free, right, with accountability partners, and it failed. And I had many accountability partners, and it failed because they're not as bought into my success, right? And it's always like, what's in it for me? And that's where I will always recommend hiring a coach. But maybe some people have a really good friend or really good family member that can be that accountability partner for them to reach their goals, right? To help them get through whatever it is that they're trying to get through. So find that accountability partner. If you are lucky enough to find one that you don't have to pay for, by all means, go right ahead and do that. That's, like I said, accountability partner is one of the best. Coach is an accountability partner, but the one that is as invested in your success as much as you are, and that also holds the space for you, no judgment, and knows what you want and reminds you of what you want using your own words for your own benefit, and then as well as asking questions to help you uncover, especially a core energy coach like what you and I are, to help you uncover what's really, really, really stopping. Right? Today was a perfect example.
Yeah. One of the cues you brought up was someone who holds space. If you are going to develop that kind of a relationship with a friend, an accountability relationship, do make sure they understand what holding space means. And I recommend there's an article by, if you look up the art of holding space, there's a Chopra Center article that perfectly illustrates what it means to hold space. So make sure that if you're going to expose your vulnerability to someone who you're trusting to have your highest self as the priority and your agenda as the priority, someone who's not going to project their own attachments. Because it's really hard. We as coaches are trained in perceiving through that lens of objectivity, and we are trained in not attaching to the story. Not everybody understands how that's done. So make sure that, because a lot of times friends give advice and attach to it because they want their advice to be the best. They want the like glory of you. Yeah, they want the win. They like, you do well, that means their advice was the greatest. And if you don't, then their ego has a little yeah. So if you are counting on a friend as that buddy, just they've really got to understand, like we both have to understand that the difference between your authenticity coming out, being exposed, and when and if they experience attachment through the lens of their own agenda.
Yeah. They always look at it as, what's in it for me, right? How do I get to benefit from this? And if they're not, because I can tell you from my own experience, then you end up getting dumped, basically.
It could be subtle and like well-meaning, like it could be like it could be so subtly manipulative, and it's just just be sure, check out that The Art of Holding Space. Make sure the people in your life that you're confiding in know what that is, because especially something as vulnerable, like when you are growing and you're beginning to reveal vulnerabilities, if someone says something that's just the teeniest bit harsh or judgmental or like mocking or ridicule or disparaging or dismissive, it could create a block 10 times bigger than the block you were trying to clear in the first place.
You just like read my mind, because that's what I was like thinking, because especially if it's a friend or a family member, there's so much attachment. There's connection and there's history there, and they might say something that can just spin you out of control and make things a lot worse than they were before. And that's where, from my personal experience, I have tried different avenues, and we all know what people say, that nothing is for free. That can be applied in this area as well. That nothing is for free, because if you're getting it for free, it's coming at some cost, right? And you got to decide if that cost is worth it, or not. If you're willing to pay the price. And if you're not, don't. And even with coaches, the other thing I will also say, one word, barter. With some coaches, you can use a bartering system because if you have something to offer, a coach can be more than open to barter with you in exchange for their services. Honestly, like bartering system works. And many coaches, especially when they're starting off,
Bring it back. Keep it in the family.
Right? They're looking for that because they're looking for who can help me to grow their business, to grow my business. Who can help me to grow my business? Right? And that person can come into your life and say, I want to work with you, but honestly, I can't afford because it's expensive, right? To some people, even a couple of $100 will be expensive. A couple of thousand might be expensive, right? In the end, it is worth it. I know from personal experience, but I get it. So, okay, doesn't mean that you can't offer something else in exchange.
Totally. I really gotta pee, so I'm gonna.
I know, me too. I'm like, oh my God. I think
All right, I gotta
bleep that out.
All right, I'm gonna. On that note, I've just gotta go pee.
Okay. Oh, she's burning now. Okay. Okay. Bye.